way we have used to have an image of a career. We climb up ladders, it's one way. But on the other hand, we are aware of the subcontracts, like the precarious work, that for many people a career is sort of a sample of short-term contracts, temporary contracts, and you have to identify and show your employability skills every time you want to make a contract. And this means you have to also network. We have heard also the LinkedIn and the ICT, so these other pictures, they illustrate the need for networking. And the other one on the bottom, it used to be a big choice. You took a huge risk if you just wanted to have one career. That's still, for some people, it's a case at the moment, but for some people it's a relief that you don't have to make this type of big choice. So instead of this career choice, we are talking about career is constructed at the moment. And it's the same with the professions. We could say that we used to choose a profession, but at the moment, if I go to Rotterdam, there's a lot of work out there that needs to be done. And this, in order to do this work, you need either skills or competencies, depending what terminology you're using. And sometimes these competencies are clustered in such a way that we used to call professions. Sometimes we still have this type of professions, they still exist, but we have also hybrids. In Finland, if you are working as a cashier in the supermarket, you are also a banking officer at the moment, so you can withdraw cash with your chip card from the desks in the supermarket. So in a way, these are hybrids. And in order to do this work and get employed, you have to identify what are your competencies, and if there are external or internal needs to improve and upgrade your competencies, you have to identify your learning goals for yourself. And then you, in a way, you either are self-referred to validation, or in some countries there are outreach services. Some professionals go to companies and ask what is the level of competencies and if they need validation and so on. So in a way, this is a continuum that is changing. And the change of the career has implications on the language. We were talking about the training universities and the shift to learning universities. So in a way, the voice of suppliers, which are education and training, it has changed to lifelong learning. So the policies on adult learning, for example, it's not anymore adult education, adult learning. But then, what is the word for this user voice in guidance? We have these career counseling, career guidance, mentoring, coaching, and tutoring, those type of terminology. They are supplier language, but what is the word for individuals that is sort of equivalent to learning? Can we call it careering? I know that in the UK, if you talk about careering, it has connotation to careering around the corner without any destination. Am I correct? Yeah. So in a way, it has this connotation, but if you think of the chaos of the careers at the moment, so why not? So in a way, you have to be looking for the way how to navigate. And if you are using the social media with these devices, you work in social networks, then when you talk with these issues with your peers or significant others, you are co-careering, co-learning, co-careering, or you are designing your future. So this means that we have to shift the focus from the career provision to the individuals, like what we are doing in learning. And this has implications how we define the terminology. And in different languages we have different words for guidance. I'm using now English, but if I go to Sweden, they talk about vägledning, showing the way. In Finnish language, Swedish, we call handledning, and I think in Dutch you say handleiding or something like that as well. So you're walking beside somebody. Then in French you're orientation. And in Estonian, or in the Estonians here, so it's like karjäärin nostaminen, giving something. And in Finnish, the language, the same word is for steering a car. So in a way, we have to explain what we mean. And if we have psychologists, mentors, teachers, assessors, when they talk about guidance, they talk what they do. And they could spend 2 weeks discussing who is doing what. And everybody's right, and it's acknowledged they are professionals, they are doing ethical work, but they are still talking about what they are doing. So instead of that, we have to shift the focus what should be the outcome of our activities. And that's why we have been developing the concept of lifelong guidance. The focus is to support individuals making meaningful life choices on learning and work. So it's an empowerment to manage learning and career at any age and any point of their life. Not only then when you have problems. So people who come to guidance, they have a lot of resources with them when they come, not only problems. And it's for all citizens. And then we come to a career. It's individual life path in learning, work, and in other settings where we learn these capacities and where we use these capacities. And then we come to the who is doing what. It's a set of activities like information, advice, counseling, assessment, teaching, advocacy. But they try to look for the same goal. So the idea is that we need to discuss what we want to achieve and how each of us as professionals contribute to the same goal. So in a way, this is how we can integrate guidance into the validation process through different professional groups with the different background, different level of expertise. And this can be done in education, training, employment, community, in private, in different settings. But what it requires to create a common language to agree on the area of cooperation. And this definition was agreed first time 2004 in the Council Minister Resolution, which is the first European Union document on career or lifelong guidance. And at the moment, the network was established to follow how these priorities, which were in the resolution, are implemented in the countries. And when we have been collecting data and evidence from each of the countries, we came to a conclusion that we have to shift the focus on the decision making. It's still important and helping others, but also having this preventive approach on promoting and developing individual career management skills. And it's Mr. Stoyle here who was presenting. We were discussing whether we call this skills or can I call career management skills? And he said that it's behavior. But if we think that these career management skills, if they refer to a whole range of competencies which provide structured ways for individuals and groups to gather information or gather, analyze, synthesize and organize information that relates myself and educational and occupational or labor market information. So in a way, it's the content dimension. What do I need to know in order to make well-informed and well-thought-through decisions and plans and evaluate? And then we come to the process dimension. It's the skill to make and implement decisions and transitions. So in a way, I'm evaluating what happens if I step here or here. So I'm able to identify learning goal and think of the implications. So it means that if career education is within a curriculum, it's not only how to complete a degree in a school, but it's how I use this content, what I've learned in school, in promoting my future employability skills, either self-employed or employed. So in a way, this is a continuum and a skill and competence which can be developed as such. And we are suggesting that it could be among the 8 lifelong learning competencies as an explicit competence area as such. But in a way, if we look at these 8 competencies, it's here and there, it's integrated. So in a way, we have these professional competencies, social competencies, and personal competencies, but can we rethink lifelong career management skills as one key competence of lifelong learning, which can be learned as such and promoted and developed? And in a way, it's not only behavior, so it's a sort of a continuum as a process. And if we look at, I took one figure from the Eurostat 2010, what are the various skills and capabilities when companies are recruiting higher education graduates. You see that there's team working skill, then we have sector-specific skills, then communication, computer, ability to adapt and act in new situation, problem solving, decision making. In a way, those are the skills which are included within the career management skills. So the career management skills is a set of these competencies that helps you to navigate in this system and developing these skills. And that's why They could be integrated within education already as a career education program, but why not as an explicit area in validation process? Not only giving information about the validation opportunities or different occupations, but also how to develop this skill explicitly within the process or during the process, through either integrated or sort of as a peer process or standalone process. And this is how I want to sort of reposition guidance, having this proactive approach in addition to the information and the tradition one-to-one setting, what image we used to have on guidance. And the elements of these career management skills is the, as I mentioned, the personal choices, knowing myself, self-assessment, decision-making, transition, acting in a diverse cultural environment. And then what is the link between education and work, on job opportunities, requirements, career exploration, learning skills, labor market trends, and so on. How do I navigate in the system? And also the labor market issue, rights and duties, and also all these issues that relate to contractual arrangements. Now if I come to the Ernestos, and perhaps tomorrow Jens is here, I was revisiting the 2009 European Guidelines on Validation, and there's an explicit chapter on guidance. And within this chapter, guidance is described from two perspectives. The guidelines mention guidance activities in relation to the provision of guidance at different stages of the validation process, and guidance in relation to the information and guidance on the existing validation mechanisms. Question, is this supplier or the user language? So, if we want to integrate guidance in a way the current paradigm, I'm making now a proposal on behalf of the network, we have been discussing on this matter. So information and guidance during all four stages, identification, documentation, assessment and certification, is a necessity in all of these phases. Next slides I sort of go in more details. And then an issue, how does this relate to the principles which are sort of already implemented in initial VET and continuing VET? Not only this validation, non-formal, informal learning, but if we are thinking of the learning university or learning VET, so it also integrates and includes these similar type of analogical elements, so validating the learning, not only sort of printing out or repeating what I have learned. So how I use this learning content later on in employment. And then one additional element, the competencies of assessors and guidance practitioners who are involved in the validation processes should be revisited or revised in the guidelines as well. And this relates to one of the quality criteria of the national guidance systems, is the competencies of staff who provide the services in different settings. So these are like food for thought for further discussions. Perhaps we can revisit them tomorrow. Then I go briefly give an example how guidance has been integrated in the validation process in Finland during the last 20 years, since mid-90s. We had 3 years ago a workshop or peer learning activity here in Utrecht. So we were discussing country cases, how validation or guidance is integrated. So there are a number of countries which have been integrating this already, but the picture was fragmented, if I remember correct, that they were different levels, like in the developing the guidance systems. But the most important is looking for the, let's say, sharing these experiences. It's a part of the mutual learning. That's something that we have been taking for granted. It's useful to reflect, and what our member countries report that when we have had this type of peer learning activities, they are sharing experiences, but on the other hand we learn to reflect, and we have the opportunity to reflect our own national systems as well. But again, competence-based exams in Finland, we started them in mid-90s. And the number of these students that have been completed these validation processes nowadays is something like 35,000 students annually. and in all of the vocational branches, and this is now in adult vet, so it's not higher education, but this gives opportunity for the students to obtain the same qualification as in the formal vet. So in a way, these learning outcomes are similar in the validation process and in the formal vocational education and training processes. And when this system was developed, it was a tripartite exercise. These are the features what we have at the moment. So it's a tripartite cooperation with employers, employees and teachers. And it's then gives the opportunities of independence and qualification to format in which the vocational skills are acquired. And it includes a completion of the qualification or module by demonstrating vocational skills as competence tests. And the key issue is the legal sort of entitlement for the citizens is this personalization of studies. And this is now a practice, but it's started as a policy initiative, and Mr. Harri Keurulainen here from the Jyväskylä University of Applied Sciences, they were involved in the process in mid-90s. What Finland did, that they were implementing this reform by training 600 teachers through a process, teacher training, which was done in accordance to validation process. So the teachers who were working in the system, they went through the validation of their own competencies and converted this to a competence when they were supporting validation of their own students. And then it included also a training of these work-based mentors or tutors or supervisors, and also training of the tripartite local committees, which are then organizing these exams. So in a way, it was implemented through a process which was analogical as the content of the process. And what I'm now describing is this personalization, which was then developed 2004-2007 within the European Social Funded project. It included that from bottom-up processes, the national project was collecting a model or a framework